Hi, how you doing? Are you having a good summer? Any travel plans? I just had some friends come back from Israel and Dubai. Seems like a great place to go. I'm very curious about Dubai. Maybe I wouldn't want to go in the middle of August, but at some point, I think that's on my bucket list. Would you go to Turkey? Or would you go to Turkey for a hair transplant? That's the question. I'm Dr. John Frank, and on this episode of Hair Fix Friday, I'm going to unpack some things about medical tourism and going to Turkey for a hair transplant. You see a lot of people, it's advertised, you see results, pretty darn good results coming out of Turkey. Would you do it? I'm thinking to myself, why not? Who am I to tell you not to go to Turkey and save a couple $1,000s and get a hair transplant, which seems okay? Well, before I get too far on this and have my colleagues cancel me for being so open-minded, let's talk about some of the details. The bottom line is that, technically speaking, hair transplant is not that difficult to perform, I think, and it's not that difficult to teach. There's a lot of people that learn how to do it pretty quickly. There's not a tremendous amount of medical licensing or legal requirements, and so a lot of people do it, and that's kind of why I took off in Turkey. The labor's cheap. So, okay, so what's the big deal? Well, there's a lot more to it than just the technical details. And I think about this in a mnemonic called JAM, J-A-M. The first part is the judgment. Not everybody is going to benefit from a hair transplant. Some people are worse off afterwards. Don't get me wrong. It can be a life-changing, wonderful, pleasant experience for many, many people doing it, but not everybody. Some people regret it. And you've got to have good judgment. The timing could be wrong. You might be at the wrong state for your hair loss, maybe too young. Different things go on in the timing. And the doctor who's seeing you, he's got to have the discipline to pull the plug and delay it or not do it at all. That's essential. If you just have a technician putting the grafts in, it's a little bit risky. So that's the judgment. The second part of the jam of hair transplant, the A of the jam, is the artistry. It takes an artist. Just because you're a doctor or just because you're good at some things technically, you have good hand-eye coordination. I was a tight end in the NFL, so I have good hands, but I'm also an art. You got to have good artistry. You got to be an artist. You got to be creative. You got to be able to envision what somebody's going to look like today and down the line. So where to put the grafts, how to design it, the allotment on what side, towards the front, towards the back. There's some basic principles, but at the end of the day, it takes a very much of an artist to do that. And so that's the A. And then the M for the JAM of hair transplant is the mercy. Okay, so the mercy part and like the compassion. You've got to be compassionate doing this procedure, not just during the procedure where it could hurt if you're not compassionate, or if you've delegated that to technicians who don't know anything about being kind and gentle with local anesthesia. It can hurt like a son of a gun for hours. Believe me, I've been there. These are all transplants. I know what it feels like. The doctor's got to be compassionate during, and then afterwards, have compassion on your there's a long process afterwards. They're going to live with these hairs for a long time. You want to be a professional. You want to be with a professional that's going to advise you, that has his hand or her hand on the pulse of everything in the hair loss world, the medicines, the vitamins, what mistakes to make, things to avoid. That's long term. That's just not just being compassionate during, that's being compassionate afterwards and down the line and getting the right advice, being compassionate and having mercy on these people you work on. So that's something to consider. And of course, ahead of time, besides the judgment, besides the artistry, you've got to work with people in advance. There's an emotional aspect. There's the psychology of going in, knowing how to be prepared, to wear with everything that's going in. It's not just a form. You've got to get people ready and their expectations, knowing what their results are going to look like. So those are all some of the key points. Look, if you're a veteran of hair transplants, maybe you've had a transplant, you know about it, and you want to go to Turkey, you're not afraid, and you want to save money, who am I to tell you not to do that? Go ahead. Good luck. But if you really want the value and the deep integral part from a real professional, then I suggest you do that with somebody like me that knows what they're doing. Until next Friday, we'll say have a good weekend, and we'll see you again on Hair Fix Friday.